There is a chilling theory about the well-known Saturn hexagon, an area at one of the giant planet's poles. It's because that area where truly colossal amounts of energy are generated has been under rigorous study for quite some time now, including the discovery of organic elements, which are unexpectedly present, There are many hypotheses about what may exist under the clouds that form part of the hexagon, ranging from an ocean of liquid diamond to a habitat of never-before-seen organic beings to an extraterrestrial city under those powerful clouds full of energy incalculable to the human mind. However, recent studies suggest that if there were life in those stormy spaces to contain organic elements, it would be microbial and not complex as some theorists claim. But if there were a city under those clouds, it would undoubtedly be a good hiding place for alien bases and ships before reaching our planet. During the space race fought by the former Soviet Union and the United States of America, it was always taken into account that each nation had its own top secret base where only the highest ranking officers had access after signing an extensive confidentiality treaty while on active duty. For this reason, some secrets were kept jealously guarded until a former officer broke the silence. And that perfectly describes a video declassified by the FBI in which several officers who are now retired after having served their nation participated in the footage. A humanoid being can be seen standing in front of cameras in total darkness. It is said that this humanoid being was captured after a sighting and subsequent plane crash near Houston, Texas in 1991. Some theorists and former officers claim that this humanoid being came from a star system called Z Reticuli, located 40 light years from Earth, and that after this encounter, 3 more were agreed upon in different locations with technological, physical, and biological objectives. It certainly sounds interesting what could have been reported in those encounters. A terrifying object from space has just appeared in the far reaches of the solar system and is heading towards the sun According to several research sources and scientific news publications, the object seems to measure 13 kilometers in diameter and is moving like a fast object that could be trying to enter our solar system, since its current trajectory seems to be about to reach the outer asteroid belt right in the Oort cloud. The appearance of that mysterious object seems to be that of a comet, although several theorists have suggested that it could be a huge mothership with visitors from another world who could be arriving to investigate our environment and our sun. It is known that there are many secrets in the American government that are finally being revealed, and among them, there is a totally mysterious story, in addition to certain footage that lives deep in those confidential files that have to do with the planet Mars. A mysterious world that, to this day, continues to be the talk of the town. It is claimed that in the 70s, the North American Space Agency would have sent the first orbital waves to the planet Mars with the aim of analyzing everything possible about that world. However, it is said that upon reaching the planet, one of the waves would capture the first photographs of the surface and send them to Earth. But what they would find in those first photographs would unleash chaos at NASA, because in the images, apparently a kind of gigantic arc could be seen embedded in the middle of Martian soil as if it had suffered an accident and had been abandoned in that place millions of years ago in the past. However, scientists came up with a shocking theory that states that Mars was habitable 10 million years ago and that there existed a very technologically sophisticated civilization. But something very strange happened to them, something that completely destroyed the Red Planet, and those inhabitants had no choice but to abandon their homeland in search of new worlds to start a new civilization. But to leave the Martian surface, they would have used some kind of gigantic vehicle very similar to an ark of absolutely colossal dimensions, in which most of its inhabitants could be transported. However, one of those arcs suffered a failure and was impacted on the surface, being abandoned for millions of years. And that is what the North American agency would have managed to discover, but it was hidden for many decades. Despite having a theory related by scientists, it is not known what the fate of the ancient inhabitants of Mars was, or if they were successful. That is to say, if they ever existed and had to leave. Another of the shocking stories that has photographic evidence could be told by a former officer who served at Fort Gray-Patterson in the United States, who claims that on one occasion he had to serve as a guard at a secret and confidential facility where, according to him, very strange and mysterious experiments were carried out with technology that seemed very futuristic or crazy to belong to the time. The fact is that while this officer was on duty, one of the scientists had a medical emergency that had to be treated quickly. So at the time that the scientist was being taken away, the officer who is telling us all this was able to enter one of the main cabins of the secret laboratory. But when he was quickly called by one of his superiors, he was only able to take a photograph, which was lying on a table accompanied by a strange object which looked a lot like a gold bracelet that emanated a kind of hologram, but he did not have more time to observe it. However, when he saw the photograph that he was able to take of that table, according to him, an intense chill ran down his spine because the image belonged to a humanoid being. The former officer says that he always wondered what was inside that laboratory and what he could not see. Some of his colleagues suggested that it would be better not to ask anyone to follow orders. But the photograph that he was able to take, he would keep for the rest of his life, and after his retirement, he was able to tell about his great experience. There is a disturbing case in which an internet user and space enthusiast saw a demonic face reflected in the natural satellite on a clear night while pointing his homemade telescope at the moon. This user claimed to have seen a demonic face reflected in the natural satellite image. The incident was described as space madness, as it was later learned that the internet user suffered from serious anxiety and stress problems, in addition to hallucinations related to space. However, there are witnesses who have seen the same thing on that exact day and at the same time when they raised their telescopes to the moon, making this case disturbing. disturbing sighting has just been recorded in the mountain range above, as a humanoid-looking being was seen during a night of observation with infrared filters by a local wildlife protection community. It is known that this being has been sighted in recent weeks by local residents, who have claimed that there are many more beings of this type of different sizes and that they have been described as guardians of the mountain range for thousands of years according to local legends. The fact is that the observers were surprised while they were monitoring a part of the mountain range and then sending the recordings to a Chilean government ministry, which is made.
Monday, February 2000.
A group of scientists were quietly filming a group of squid in their natural habitat when they suddenly saw a strange object passing by at great speed on their screens. Everyone on the marine vehicle was astonished to see the speed of the object, which did not belong to any animal, and the size of the object too. After seeing all this, they began to analyze the recorded images and came across an object measuring more than 3 meters passing very quickly in front of one of the marine vehicle's cameras. No doubt, the researchers believe that this is yet another example of what is being referred to as an OSNAN, an unidentified underwater object, which was in that place at that exact moment. This could go unnoticed if it were not for something chilling. It is said that the place where scientists were located is known for its legends as an underwater city where a large number of strange lights and marine noises emanate that still cannot be explained. The case was in the hands of the FBI for years, and 20 years later, the truth is finally known.
Did you know?
There is a Russian catalog of the types of extraterrestrials that have visited Earth. Well, during the space race, the Soviet Union, in support of the KGB, created a space catalog of possible extraterrestrial creatures that visited Earth, according to stories and biological data hidden inside Russian laboratories. And among them is the alien race known as the insectoids, which come from the planet LB-223 of the binary star system Z Reticuli, located approximately 39 light years from Earth, according to the catalog. They are approximately 2.4 meters tall and seek contact with other planets that have an excess of oxygen so that they can colonize them in the future, since their home planet is on the verge of extinction. However, planet Earth is not to his liking due to the stable amount of oxygen that exists, mixed with other elements that would be harmful to his species. This footage belongs to a YouTube user who is in charge of subtly looking for the needle in the bird, and it seems that he has definitely found it. The video was captured on the lunar surface with a homemade telescope, but of good quality, and apparently a ship of considerable dimensions is flying above our natural satellite. It is a spooky object that leaves us with more questions than answers. Think. This footage is considered one of the clearest evidences of unidentified space objects in recent times, since it was captured during a commercial flight at more than 5,000 meters high, and the trajectory that this object is taking in the air and disappearing on the horizon is fascinating. You will make you. Aside from its spooky appearance, similar to a sphere, there is no doubt that it fills us with curiosity to know who its pilots are. What is their primary objective on this planet? What do you think? The video that you are going to see below is about real footage captured in India, which summarizes that many strange things appear day after day in the subcontinent, which are not public record, since the quantity of them does not come to light, since their nature not of common interest among its inhabitants. But this video shows once again the enormous amount of unknown objects that visit our planet daily. What do you think? Through several officials of the former Soviet Union, it was possible to know what is hidden behind the doors of certain military bases of the time, since it is said that several experiments based on encounters with alien beings were carried out, and the ex-officers witnessed said encounters and subsequent experiments, in which there was always an non-terrestrial biological being, egg, and this footage may be the definitive proof of that. It is said that it was filmed in 1974 at a secret base of the Soviet Union and was part of an accident that resulted in several deaths, both human and extraterrestrial biological entities. The video was hidden for a long time, but it was found by someone on the well-known deep web, where it is said that there are still thousands of secret files waiting to be revealed. In 1983, several missions to space were carried out by the former Soviet Union. And it is no secret that they used all kinds of animals, even pets that would never shown to Earth them or not, since in the name of science, they perished in space, and their remains continue to orbit our world. However, some Soviet scientists came up with an innovative idea for the time. The feeling for domestic animals, who were the main protagonists of these missions, was so great that they did not want to look into the eyes of those who were never going to return. And as a result of that, they had no better idea than to use insects like cockroaches or flies and implanting them with strong chemicals that would greatly increase their size and sending them into space to see how far they would be able to survive. It is said that the experiment on these creatures was successful, but the problem was that they lived too much in space without oxygen. And this old footage from the KGB could be proof of those future experiments. During the Soviet era, several missions in search of some hidden things in lost Antarctica were carried out in secret by special agents of the KGB who believed that there were remains of an advanced civilization that could teach us several things in addition to their technology. And it was rumored at that time that the Germans had hidden bases under the Antarctic ice, but what they found went much further. Precisely in an Antarctic underground lake, better known as Lake Bozdogok, a mysterious body of water under a creepiness of layers of ice that was sealed from the surface for more than 50 million years, and possible creatures that humanity does not know could live there. And that is precisely what they would have found. And it is that in one of those excavations, they came across a chilling being that had the appearance of an alien with enormous tentacles and a luminosity in its extremities never seen before. The Soviets called it Organism 46B, and this footage was one of the many tapes that the KGB kept secret of those discoveries. That could be another example of what we could find on other planets, owns us. There is a series of footages that the KGB could have kept when the Soviet Union was about to collapse, and among them there's talk of a series of footages that were recorded in the 80s, precisely in the middle of space. Mysterious footages that would show some objects unknown to us and that have filled many questions. For today's scientists, who believe there's something outside of Earth that we have not yet seen. A clear example of this could be these mysterious videos. In the first missions that took a human being to Earth's orbit, a series of photographs were taken that revealed the Soviet government's secret agency with mysteries. In those images, a series of mysterious objects and lights could be seen that were not normal for the time. And thinking that perhaps they were Americans was not an option, since at that time the North American country was far behind in space achievements and the Soviet Union was taking the lead. As a result, this old footage recorded outside of Earth in orbit would undoubtedly show that we are not alone in this universe and that these unidentified objects have been visiting us for a long time. Without a doubt, terror towards the unknown can invade our minds as we delve deeper into the mysteries of the universe, and one of them is life on other worlds. And it seems that human beings are already realizing that we are not alone in this universe, and this video, captured on a farm in Illinois in the United States, may be real proof of all this. The footage was captured by a farmer's son in the early hours of the morning before starting his workday, and he could see something moving inside a barn. So he bravely took out his cell phone and recorded this impressive image. The video was subtly seen by the whole world thanks to social media. Yes. There is a secret mission to the moon called Apollo Wax, and it was forgotten in time, thanks to government rumors that were in charge of disappearing it from the history of astronomy. Well, according to the astronauts of the time, those members of the mission saw chilling objects that they should never have seen on the dark side of the moon. However, today it is already possible to obtain several footages and photographs that would confirm the veracity of said mission, and what could be found will surely live in your worst nightmares. During the observation of the moon by the user Nightmare, an object was seen moving near the lunar surface in relief. One mystery surrounding this is that it appears to be very large and that it crashed into one of the natural satellite's craters, although the explanations are different, which may seem confusing at first. In reality, it is most likely a space rock, a satellite, a plane, a bird, or debris that crosses in front of the camera. You think? In January 2019, an incredible event went unnoticed around the world, which could be the reason why several solar observatories suddenly closed their operations. So, on that date, a chilling event occurred on our sun, a large-scale phenomenon that seems to have appeared without warning in front of the sun like a kind of gigantic ship from another world, capturing energy from the star in a massive way. Witnesses to the event did not hesitate to take out their telescopes and capture all kinds of footage. But the strange thing is that a short time later, all those publications inexplicably disappeared. However, thanks to several photographs of the event and artificial intelligence, it was possible to recreate a video clip that would represent what happened near the sun. What do you This could be just another footage of the strangest objects that visit the moon on a daily basis. But if we look closely, this artifact seems to have something more interesting. as it seems to be a spaceship of some kind flying over the lunar surface in search of something that a human being still cannot understand. The video was captured by the Russian user Cosmo, and at first it was thought that it was an Earth satellite, but after analyzing the images, it was concluded that it belongs to another mystery of lunar activity. This footage, although vaguely of artificial origin, usually describes several mysteries that the Vatican hides, as it is believed that among its most hidden secrets there is a machine that can see through time called a chronovisor. And here is supposed proof of the origin of the gigantic pyramids of Egypt and the reason why they were built. Well, yeah. Likewise, it can be noted that intelligences from outside this world would be responsible for the creation of those archaeological treasures that humanity is still amazed by their construction. This video was presented in various media outlets as real evidence of extraterrestrial visitors to the planet Mars since on one of the Martian suns, the Robert Curiosity would have captured a series of interesting photographs that show a cylindrical-shaped object floating above the Martian surface and, a short time later, disappearing among the earthy landscape of the red planet. Among all the researchers who analyzed the possible evidence, some theorists maintain that it is evidently an alien spacecraft that was visiting the planet Mars at that time. What do you think? Are not the astronauts we sent into space? Among the many stories that the internet can offer us, there is a very disturbing one that has to do with a manned mission sent into space in the 90s. It is said that in that decade, the United States of America had ambitious plans this time to send humans to the planet Mars and later to one of Saturn's moons, better known as Titan, with the aim of colonizing the solar system as quickly as possible. However, everything would get out of control when in 1990 they sent a mission into space to reconnoiter the route and then arrive at the International Space Station. But when they returned to Earth, it is said that they were not them, since they had completely different features from the astronauts and from Earth Earthantive. And it is that they had completely dark eyes and yellowish skin, in addition to having a constant fake smile all the time on their faces. Man, what do you think happened to them? Certainly, contact with some of the world has been misinterpreted in recent times to the point of being ridiculed by internet users who believe they own the truth or perhaps have a much higher IQ, so to speak. However, in the 60s, those encounters were considered real since there were no technological tools like those available today, and much less in the former Soviet Union. Well, at the time, anyone who experienced a supposed otherworldly encounter was transported to the KGB's secret facilities for interrogation, so some people didn't have to take any risks in those years. To survivor, we now know that thousands of interrogations were released in secret files, and the cases that we can now see are usually shocking. But within this context, there is a video that was released just after the fall of the Soviet Union, that is in the 90s. Interesting footage which was recorded in the 60s and has provided proof of the visit of alien beings, because in that video you can see certain entities that were known as extraterrestrial biological entities. To simplify things further, it is known that this alien encounter took place at the Soviet bases of the time and was part of a contact with events for the creation of advanced technology in order to win the space race and send human beings to other worlds, which would be a milestone for modern science. However, that encounter was very brief because, according to the images and subsequent research, these beings did not adapt to the climatic conditions of our planet and could not have been more than 40 hours on Earth, but they left at the government's disposal a series of mathematical and physical calculations that, according to theory, served as a buffer to begin travel to space, which it should be remembered the Soviet Union was able to achieve by sending the first human into space. The images in the video are undoubtedly disturbing and leave us wondering if all this is true. On the night of July 23, 2024, unusual activity was reported near the planet Jupiter S. Through a powerful telescope, an amateur astronomer in the United States recorded the movement of an object very close to the gaseous giant. Following this unusual discovery, this amateur astronomer notified NASA authorities, who quickly observed the object between the moons Callisto and Europa, which, according to later statements, appeared to be making intelligent movements. In the sequence of images that lasted at least several minutes, it can be seen how the object seems to be executing controlled movements. However, everything indicates that it could be unknown technology visiting the giant planet Jupiter for some reason. What do you think? On June 28, 2023, the Archimedes, as an astronomical site of the United States, shared an extraordinary recording on social media of a gigantic UFO near Saturn. This mysterious object of enormous size seemed to be making intelligent movements as it crossed over the ring the giant and disappeared into the darkness of space. Several researchers agree that the size of this object could have been even much larger than that of Earth. For this reason, the astonishment continues to this day, since a logical explanation has never been found for this object that has already become an enigma. There is no doubt that the Soviet Union's efforts were titanic because they were able to make space achievements against their rival, the United States. We could say that it was the effort of a misunderstood nation that achieved important milestones during the space race. Such was the case with the incredible Venera missions, which managed to reach the planet Venus, a world considered a living hell due to its enormous temperatures and, not to mention, the pressure which in a few minutes managed to destroy one of the many Soviet probes that reached that world considered Earth's evil Tapanaka. The fact is that between the 70s and 80s, the Soviet Union managed to send probes to the hellish planet Venus itself. They would even manage to send color photographs and terrifying audio of what it was like to be inside that world. Without a doubt, these achievements are truly interesting, and the KGB had a lot to do with safeguarding the secret files that were discovered from that mission that would go history. In May 1961, the Italian Giudica Cordelia brothers, who were fans of radio broadcasting and music at the time, picked up a terrifying Soviet transmission whose coordinates linked them to the KGB of the time, as they were witnessing a live space accident. The brothers, on a normal day, pointed their antennas towards space, and suddenly a conversation began to sound out of nowhere. A desperate conversation, begging for help from a woman who they soon associated with the Soviet Union because of the language she spoke. The cosmonaut said in desperation that she was literally burning inside a space capsule sent into orbit. The case became very sad, in addition to changing the lives of the Giudica Cordelia brothers forever, as they listened to the cosmonaut's life fade away in a horrific scenario in which no one should have died as a result of the intense flames of the space capsule. After this, and the helplessness of not being able to help that woman who perished in space, the brothers decided to make this transmission public, but it did not receive much attention in those years since space issues were far removed from daily life. All this can teach us only one thing, that the successes of missions will always be cheered and celebrated with great joy. Failures will always be hidden. In July 1984, some overwhelming sightings took place that would completely change the vision of reality of the crew of a Soviet ship, Moses ship. And it is that they would position themselves as one of the strangest encounters in the entire space history of humanity. And it is that the Soviet cosmonauts saw the impossible, since in front of their station there were 7 winged humanoids of colossal size that shone and floated in the middle of the emptiness of space. As they described it, these beings shone, and it truly was a totally overwhelming event. There was a great orange light, and through it, we could see the figures of 7 angels smiling, as if they were sharing a glorious secret. But after a few minutes, they were gone, and we never saw them again, according to statements made by one of the crew members of the Soviet ship. This story is yet another in the secret files that the KGB had kept deep inside. And now we know yet another in the immense catalog of sightings and experiences of cosmonauts in space. During the space race, hundreds of programs, even thousands, were carried out in secret. All this because if they ever failed, there would be no qualms about denying the existence of said project, but one of them would manage to leak to the public. And without a doubt, the nature of said secret project is overwhelming. In 1961, the KGB, in collaboration with the Soviet Army, carried out an expedition to the pyramids of Egypt. All this because of the mystery that such construction works reached the KGB agents. It is known from the images that they managed to infiltrate very deeply into the main pyramid of Giza, and inside it they managed to enter a mortuary chamber which was very sacred and contained the remains of a being from the stars. According to the accounts of the inhabitants of the place, who believe that the pyramids kept their gods, who could have extraterrestrial origins according to the Russian agents. After a great deal of disinfection and excavation work, they were able to enter the mysterious tomb of that being from the stars. So several officers, with the help of scientists, managed to open the tomb, and what they found inside could be described as a stellar discovery, since inside lay a humanoid, being approximately 2.5 meters tall, who was bandaged and full of small artifacts. It is known that the incredible discovery was taken to Soviet laboratories, and the project itself would be silenced and saved for posterity. However, years later, someone from the former Soviet Union would leak these images, but it was never known what happened to the body of that being, and its origin is unknown. Remember the famous incident in 1977, which occurred during a broadcast on English television when a being who claimed to be called Brilon, who claimed to be part of the Galactic Command to Star Sharon in one of the stars of the Pleiades, suddenly burst into an English TV program to give a galactic message about world peace and cosmic improvement. Well, there is another more disturbing case that occurred in 1998, this time on Sacred-based television. Well, when a famous soap opera of the time was being broadcast late at night, suddenly and without warning, a blurry but quite understandable broadcast suddenly appeared on the televisions of that time in the Turkish country Balıkesir. In it, a being of feminine appearance of a bluish color could be seen. A message that astonished those who witnessed the event at that time. According to the witnesses themselves, and according to some recordings, the message was clear. The being claimed to come from a star system on the verge of extinction, just 39 light years from Earth, and that, due to its own mistakes, such as overexploitation of resources, problems with beliefs, and struggles for power, its system was facing enormous conflicts that were about to trigger the disappearance of its system and its home planet. The strange transmission lasted barely a minute and a half, but at the end of it, this being was able to say that human beings were in time to save themselves, since they were just a growing species and we should not abuse technology or resources, much less power, which can sometimes lead to making fatal decisions for the population. Moments later, the transmission was cut off, and if all this turned out to be true, then that unknown system which referred to this being would have disappeared more than 40 years ago. Only the message barely managed to get through in 1998. Of all the mysterious places on Earth, the so-called Zone of Silence has become a place where the strange, the unknown, and, to a certain extent, paranormal reigns. Over many years. This place, which is located in Mexico, between Chihuahua, Durango, and Coahuila, has been the subject of several theories and paranormal cases that have to do with strange lights in the sky and even abductions of curious people who venture into the place to explore in cars where it is said that they have lost track of time only to reappear days later, believing that only minutes have passed. Though it is a mysterious area that has witnessed the disappearance of several US and Mexican military planes, only to appear many hours later without any kind of, or especially with an uncertainty that seems to be related to other dimensions. One of the most chilling cases can be described by a local who claimed to have a nearby ranch with a large number of farm animals that suddenly disappeared. After seeing a series of strange creatures in the distance, very similar to giant octopuses, slowly approaching, to appear hours later in an unknown place near the mountains, with the sadness of having lost his ranch and his animals, who were never seen again by the farmer. This place can undoubtedly show us that there may be a connection or a bridge between dimensions, or some places in the cosmos that would be used by alien beings to enter this galactic plane, or simply this world. It is that the universe could be full of life thanks to a theory that we know as bisespemitria, which states that life is like a virus that can spread throughout the universe in meteorites, asteroids, and thousands of space rocks that are constantly traveling in space. And if all this were true, we would find an immense amount of creatures existing on millions and trillions of planets. Only the distance makes it impossible to detect them directly right now. Planet T Garden B may well be an example of this, given its proximity to Earth, just 12.5 light-years away, and its current classification as a fully habitable planet. However, it is possible that life on that world could be different, since panspermia, in doing its job, could have brought life from far away in the galaxy, where, if this were the case, we would see beings completely unimaginable and different from those we know on Earth, just as we would be to them. And since they are going through an evolutionary process, they would be nothing more than wild creatures with completely strange and terrifying features, like what we would see in the prehistoric era, where they would have enormous reptiles capable of killing us in just seconds. Without a doubt, the theory of pastry is quite fascinating, but if we think about it in a scientific way, we could see unimaginable things on other planets. It is said that the universe is a cold and inhospitable place where nothing can survive except billions of rocks that pass from one place to another at great speeds, but that have nothing interesting to show. However, recently, an object that was considered of no interest entered the cosmic neighborhood as if it were a spy or a distant visitor who only wanted to know that we exist, and in the same way, it went to another part of the universe. We are talking about the 3D Atlas object, mysterious object that comes from another star system. But despite the fact that the scientific community said that it was just another space rock, several internet users and space lovers set out to observe it directly, resulting in incredible footage. And more than anything, they would assure that the object that came from far away could be an alien probe that took more than 50,000 years to reach our star system. As can be seen in the images that a group of Chinese amateur astronomers claimed to have captured of the mysterious object, where you can see a rocky but mysterious appearance. And if perhaps it was built like this for a long journey, That question may be interesting since when we see the photographs of those Asian astronomers, we are filled with feeling of curiosity, since if we observe very carefully, we could see a very resistant rocky object that built exclusively to be able to travel between stars. All of this can encompass a situation that we have in mind. That is that in the universe anything could be possible and anything could happen. With this unusual object that has just passed through our star system as a background, I am going to show you a series of footages in which you will witness that the universe is a very mysterious place, full of chilling objects that human beings are only just beginning to understand. It is known that the United States of America did everything to win the space race, and despite the fact that they succeeded, there are many mysteries surrounding the waves that this world power sent into space more than half a century ago to explore nearby worlds and their respective moons, This is the case of a space probe called Phobos 2, which was in charge of photographing and analyzing the atmospheric composition of the planet Mars. But when it was fully operational and sending impressive photos to Earth, it disappeared without warning and then sent a strange image to Earth of an elongated object almost 25 kilometers long. Many researchers of the time were quick to relate the disappearance of Phobos to this mysterious object, since that probe stopped working and sending data to Earth only after capturing that mysterious thing that measured more than 25 kilometers long. long. So scientists set about the task of seeing what could have happened, reaching the same conclusion that this elongated object was to blame for all this. For more information, I'll leave you with a video from that time that shows everything related to the disappearance.
In 1989, the sudden disappearance of Phobos had ominous connotations. Now, Russian officials close to the space program feel free to offer their own theories about the satellite's disappearance.
Phobos 2 was supposed to enter the Martian sky and descend to an altitude of 15 meters. Phobos 2 was sending images normally when suddenly the last photo of Phobos arrived. In that image, Phobos, the Martian moon, and an oblong-shaped object were seen. The object cast a shadow on Mars, and then Phobos 2 disappeared.
Scientists from all over the world have studied the last photograph transmitted by Phobos 2. The oblong image shown here is estimated to be at least 25 kilometers long, almost 3 seeds. Many believe that Phobos 2 photographed a huge alien ship. Number 4. This incredible video was built from official data that the Venera waves contributed in the last century during the space race on their journey to the planet Venus. And within this world, you can see a completely inclement and hellish landscape that has completely extreme temperatures, where it could be concluded that no person could survive. NASA hid this for years, or at least that is what they say about it, because in that footage you can see a series of objects surrounding the space transporter. The objects have a spherical appearance and were classified as UFOs, or objects that cannot be identified as human. The fact is that the video is true, and the reason for the concealment of it by the space agency is not explained. What do you think?
It seems to be anything in that with us.
we got somebody out the front window with paired binoculars and zoom trying to get a pretty good idea on this thing.